Hi, I'm Elizabeth Gearhart with Fireside. I'm here with David Grasso of Bold TV. Hi, David.
Always a pleasure seeing you.
Yeah, so what makes people want to watch Bold TV?
Bold TV is media that represents us, Gen Z and millennial Americans.
How does it do that?
So what we try to do is we create an editorial process that recognizes bias and the echo chamber and really tries to create equal representation from all walks of life. That means diversity, inclusion, and also representation geographically, economically, racially, and every sort of identity that you can really think of.
So, where do you get your content? You interview people yourself as well as bringing in other content, right?
Yes, so we have our own staff of talent that represent our mission. They are from many walks of life. Additionally, we have guests that are invited on the show that cover dissimilar topics, ranging from politics to lifestyle to business to entrepreneurship. You name it, we probably do it.
Wow. And so, where do people find you? You're online now. You said before COVID it was different.
Yes, so we are currently a digital brand and we're always looking to expand into traditional media as well. But for now, you can find us at Bold TV, that's BOLD TV on most social media platforms. And you can also find most of our content at boldtv.com.
So, who are some of the people that you've interviewed that you really enjoyed the content?
I mean, the most famous person I've ever interviewed, and really the person who I connected the best on camera with, was Mark Cuban, because he was just his authentic self and he was exactly what you would imagine him to be. And it turned out that he wasn't a mythical creature. He was just a regular man with a great track record of success and excellent advice for young people.
So, do you consider this more an educational TV show that or entertainment or combo?
I believe that something that is educational should also be entertaining. It is hard to educate people when it is not engaging. And that's really at the crossroads of what we do day in and day out, is really try to relay what we have in common instead of what we have apart. And we believe that is the entrepreneurial spirit. And that's really what we try to celebrate every single day.
So, you've been the CEO for a while, and what does it cost for somebody to be interviewed by you or to be featured on your station?
So the majority of our content is not sponsored. We do something called earned media. You can send pitches our way through a general inquiry through the website. Our guests do not pay for their spots. We are a traditional media channel. If you are a notable entrepreneur or a notable thought leader, we want you to be included and be part of the movement.
Excellent. So, your audience is young people. How much viewership do you have typically?
So typically we are in the millions of views per month across all social media platforms, including our influencers' social media footprint as well. Typically our floor currently is 2 million views a month, and we've seen views moving toward the 4 million mark.
So, what is your most successful channel for getting views? Is it social
It,
media? Is it
right now we are a Facebook centric brand, and I include Instagram in that bucket because it is the same company. Um, our brand has always been a Facebook native brand. We were one of the world's first brands that really built our business around Facebook Live, and we remain a very Facebook heavy brand. Additionally, we have grown to include some very notable Instagram influencers, including Philip Michael, who is a notable thought leader in the Black wealth space. And I'm currently working on my own Instagram profile, but I'm a little behind.
okay? So, I saw on LinkedIn you have quite a few connections. Are you an influencer yet?
I don't know. I mean, I think influencers are a relative term. You know, LinkedIn is my platform of choice. You have properly identified where I am most passionate and most outspoken about my views and the way I view the world. And I think LinkedIn has always been a great place. And then, of course, that's how I met you, and that's my primary source. It's my primary source of outreach. And really, I personally respond to the messages on LinkedIn because I really care about what's happening in that community.
Excellent. So, if a normal entrepreneur wants to get on your TV show, can they do it if they have a good startup? Is what do you look for in the pitch?
So for me, there's two sides of a pitch. So we've interviewed everyone from someone who doesn't even have a business plan up to Mark Cuban, right? And everyone in between. There are very few people walking around who have interviewed as many entrepreneurs as I have. I'm pretty certain I've interviewed more than 1,000 entrepreneurs. So maybe it's slightly less, maybe it's a lot more. We haven't really counted. But getting back to your question, what we look for is basically the validity of an idea. Is this an idea that solves problems? Entrepreneurship is fundamentally about solving problems. You're doing this here through this directory, trying to solve a problem. And that's really, to me, the power of a pitch is the ability to solve a problem efficiently, effectively, and of course, make money while you're doing it.
Absolutely. So that sounds like a really great program that you have. Are you doing all the interviews yourself, or do you have other people doing them as well?
So currently, because of the pandemic, I have relocated to Florida. So my colleague Philip Michael has taken over our show Bold Business, which has been in existence since May 2017, where I personally interviewed many, many, many entrepreneurs. Today, Philip has the reins of that show. He is a half South African, half Danish entrepreneur. And he's big in the crowdfunding real estate space as well as the Black wealth space. And I really felt like it was important to continue the show from New York, where the entrepreneurs are coming in virtually these days, but hopefully someday they will continue to come into the studio. We've been in the same studio since 2017 in Midtown Manhattan, and we're committed to keeping that footprint alive.
Is he going into the studio now, or is it still remote?
We have been in the studio since May. So our studio actually never closed, but we went virtual for a while, of course, while it was not safe to be in person. But since I would say safely the first week in June, we've had a very limited presence in studio, including where you're watching me right now is a two-person studio in Orlando, Florida. We also do remote shoots as well. And we sometimes rent very fancy studios, all of course, while doing it safely for pandemic purposes.
Excellent. So, right, my husband and I have a radio show on iHeart called Passage to Profit. And I see you have a podcast on iHeart too. And kind of
Yeah, and it's called Follow the Profit. So you and I, and it's also an iHeartRadio product. So it looks like we probably should have been connected. So thank you,
yeah,
LinkedIn.
exactly. But we haven't been able to get into the studios for a year. So we used to go into the studio we were down in Tribeca. And now I guess that we're going into Midtown when we go back because they're not using the Tribeca studio anymore. We consolidated things in the past year.
So this is something as an entrepreneur that I'm greatly interested in, and I've made no secret about this. The studio business is something that is ripe to be disrupted, and people like you probably wish they could book a studio online and just do it easily. And that is something that I would like to pursue in the future, and a possible form of monetization for one of the businesses I would like to start, because of course I'm a serial entrepreneur.
Right. Well, if you need studios, my husband and I are putting together a video studio on our property in New Jersey, in Summit, New Jersey. And I think that's a great business because I think that video is just going to get bigger and bigger. And people, now we're doing everything on Zoom, and everything I've done for Fireside practically, except at the very beginning, has been on Zoom. But people, it's different in person, right?
It is different, but what's funny is in person can never be replaced. But the Zoom revolution, and we were doing Zoom and Skype prior to the pandemic, your quality of guests in general go up. So a lot of people are far too busy to do what used to be the old-fashioned media tour, which is basically as follows. You fly into New York and you do every station from Bold TV up to NBC and everything in between, including audio, video. You go stop at the Wall Street Journal. I don't know if that's ever going to come back. So I think there is a place for in person, but the remote revolution will continue as time goes on.
I think you're right because especially since we have a professionally produced podcast by our producer at iHeart, and so it's not just a regular podcast like a lot of people are doing, the quality of the people we have gotten on our show has gone way up because
Oh,
you just said.
I, I can't begin to tell you the guests I've had. I've had the co-founder of Square, the co-founder of Home Depot. I've had Anthony Scaramucci, who of course is the founder of Skybridge Capital and a former White House employee, we'll call him. And it's been magical. And I think that's something that's, we always focus on what's been terrible about the pandemic. And of course, it has been awful. And there's no way to begin to assess the damage that's been done to us as a society and as a world. But those are one of the silver linings, of course, is people like us are able to bring in quality guests and make compelling content that can hopefully change lives.
Well, and I don't think I could have grown Fireside without the pandemic, because I was trying to do all the videos in a studio, and that was intimidating for people. But now you're just looking at another person on Zoom. It's really easy. I was still doing interviews to try to make it less intimidating, but now everybody and his brother is doing Zoom and they don't notice that you're recording, right? So it's so much
It's
easier.
We've socialized everyone to be a YouTuber, haven't we? Accidentally. And that's one of the interesting things about the pandemic, is that we've forgotten how to do some things like be human, right? And, socialize and travel and all that type of stuff. But we've also learned new skills like what we're doing here right now. You're in Summit, New Jersey. I'm in Orlando, Florida, and we're having a conversation as if we were sitting right next to each other.
Exactly. So, is there anything else we need to know about Bold TV? I think it sounds to me like you would make an excellent interviewer, and I'm sure your partner would too. So, I would think people would be anxious to get on the Bold TV. So they just go to your website and they find you there, and they
Yeah, and you can write us on Facebook or Instagram or anywhere, and where for anyone who's a real hustling entrepreneur, you can figure out how to contact us. We're very out there. We're on every platform known to mankind. We don't discriminate based on platforms. Before. So, and we feel like it takes a village. So we're always open to, ideas, feedback, guest ideas, new partnerships. So the way we've grown as a brand is being open source. And that's really a fundamental part of our culture, is our company culture, is understanding that there is no single, right answer, and there is no single business plan, and there is no single source of growth. It's multi-platform, it's multifaceted, and it's multi-viewed if we really want to represent who we are as a people, which we are not a cultural monolith here in America. We are a continent, we are planet America. We have our way of doing things, and it varies widely, as you would understand, being from Seattle and living in New Jersey, just like me living in Orlando and being from right down the street in Miami. Things are very different. So we're trying to represent all of America.
Right. I lived in Colorado. I lived in Michigan. I lived in Atlanta. So I've skipped around the country, and we're all still Americans, right? Even though we're a little different. But I have to ask you this. So if somebody wanted to come on Bold TV, do they need to have a lot of followers on social media? Do they need to have a presence?
Well, we have so many different types of platforms that we do take people who don't have a lot of followers. Obviously, it's something we check. Any sort of media company is going to check to see how many followers you have. But, we've taken so many entrepreneurs that didn't have followers and now do. And they come back to us and say, hey, Bold TV, you helped us become who we are today. Thank you. And they in turn help us. So it's one of those things that it's always a balance, right? We can't have just all people with no followings or just celebrities, because that would make us just mainstream media, right? So we have to have an adequate balance. And really the editorial process is fundamentally not controlled by me. That is, I am too old. It is controlled by our Gen Z centric team, who of course confers on my advice, and we discuss it in editorial meetings on Zoom, since we are a team distributed across America, mostly in New Jersey, if you want to know. But it's an organic, beautiful process that I've been very shy about changing, because we became a brand by allowing people to be themselves, whether that means they don't have a social media following or are influencers and everything in between. We take them all depending on the conditions in which they pitch, what we're thinking about talking about that day, what our talent feels, what our producers feel, and really the messages that we want to send to our audience about what we have in common: entrepreneurship, the hustle, that we're all Americans. And really crafting that diverse narrative is a complex process that's hard to reduce to, this is the magic pitch that gets you on Bold TV.
Yeah, well, I love the young people in our country today, because I do feel like the younger generations are pushing diversity and more inclusive society. And I love that. I mean, everybody's different, but we're all the same, right? So you find that with your
Well, running a brand is never easy, because you have to, if you're really committed to diversity and inclusion, it has to be built into your brand, right? And people always say, well, diversity and inclusion comes at the expense of certain demographics to the benefit of other demographics. No, diversity and inclusion is not only the right business decision economically, it's also the right ethical decision. And that's something that I've built as a brand, having grown up as an ethnic minority and a sexual minority. I guess I'm married to a man, having been a blonde-haired Hispanic boy and growing up in a demographically changing Miami and turned out to be married to a man, I understand what diversity is and why that's important to the way we function as a brand, and letting people be themselves, whether they're, a conservative Christian from Alabama or they're an urbane, Asian lady from Manhattan. We want everyone included. We want those voices at the table, and we want to hear what they have to say unfiltered without an agenda or a certain narrative to spin.
That is excellent. And that is what I love about the young people. I mean, my daughter is very liberal. My son is conservative.
You're describing every family, right? We have Thanksgiving and we fight at the dinner table. Isn't that Thanksgiving is before the football game now? We all fight about politics, right? So, and it's what we want to make sure is that both sides are talking to each other. I've made no secret that I'm right of center. My co-founder is very much left of center, and we talk every day and we hash out the issues and we agree to disagree, but we don't scream at each other. We don't dehumanize each other, and we celebrate what we have in common.
Yeah, I think it's okay to disagree on anything as long as you don't bring personal attacks into it, right? So it doesn't matter what race or gender or orientation or anything you are, just talk about the issues, right?
Yeah, and people are going to disagree. A lot of us fundamentally agree on the problems. We don't really agree on the solutions. And that's really, we try to focus on, here is a marketplace of solutions. Okay. We have, certain people in our, ecosystem that are going to not represent, what the other side thinks or vice versa. And really the line between liberal and conservative is so blurred now, like what exactly is liberal and what exactly is conservative. And I think young people have a better idea of that. MSNBC is liberal, Fox News is conservative. They are biased. So we don't want to lead with our bias. Personally, at our fundamental personal level, we have our bias, but at a brand level, no matter who's supporting us, we try to do the right thing. We try to promote what we consider to be what we have in common, which is, conscious, responsible capitalism and the freedom to be yourself.
Absolutely. And I think that's really what freedom means, is the freedom to be yourself, right?
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, we have to live that every day, is the freedom to make your own choices and of course to make your own mistakes.
Right. I've done plenty of that.
Oh yeah, me too.
Well, this is awesome. Now I really want to watch Bold TV, and you're going to have to come on our radio show. You can do it through Zoom, but when you're in New York, you have to come to the studio. So,
well, I'd be delighted to take you up on that offer. Thank you.
yes, absolutely. So, is there anything else that you want to say on this interview about Bold TV?
Oh, well, journalists never have anything to add. You'll never hear a journalist ever answer that question, because that's a question we ask other people. And that's usually when you get the best sound bites. So that concludes my interview.
Well,
quite humorous, but true. Ask any journalist.
Well, you have really been fun to talk to. So thank you very much.
Of course.
I think at this point, we'll say have a wonderful day.